Welcome to the show. In this episode, we've got an interesting one here for you today. And it dives into something that most of us use every day, but might not be aware of its origins or why it is the way that it is. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like and head to buymeacoffee.com/SamsonKing to make a donation. We always appreciate it. So, where did the QWERTY keyboard layout come from? For those not familiar, if you take a look at your laptop or keyboard, you'll notice that under the numbers, the letters start with Q, W, E, R, T, Y. QWERTY. So why QWERTY? Let's take a look at where this keyboard layout came from. Here's where things get a little foggy. An often repeated explanation for the QWERTY keyboard layout is that it was designed by Sholes to slow typists down in order to prevent typewriters from jamming. If you've ever used an old-fashioned typewriter, you might have noticed how easy it is to strike letters in quick succession or simultaneously, which can cause the type bars to become stuck together. Yes, I've just dated myself there. I'm no spring chicken. But would Sholes really have sabotaged his own keyboard layout to hamper the speed of operators? In reality, there is little to no hard evidence of any deliberate slowdown. And the patent that first mentions the QWERTY layout contains no direct mention of why the keys were placed in such a manner. If it was indeed designed to cause fewer jams, this feature would likely have been a primary attribute of the patent. What's more, at the time that Sholes patented the QWERTY layout, there were no touch typists, so no one was typically typing particularly quickly, let alone speed typing. If you imagine somebody typing on the typewriter where you couldn't delete, you'd have to make sure you're hitting the right keys. So, why did QWERTY become standard? One convincing and particularly thorough answer comes from Kyoto University researchers Koichi Yasuoka and Motoko Yasuoka in their 2010 paper on the prehistory of QWERTY. The researchers conclude that the mechanics of the typewriter did not influence the keyboard design. Instead, the QWERTY system was a rather circuitous result of how the first typewriters were used. So among the most prominent early adopters of early typewriters were telegraph operators, whose priority was to quickly transcribe messages. These operators found an alphabetical keyboard arrangement to be confusing and inefficient for transcribing Morse code. The Kyoto paper suggests the QWERTY keyboard evolved over several years as a direct result of the input provided by these telegraph operators. According to the researchers, the keyboard arrangement was incidentally changed into QWERTY, first to receive telegraphs, then to thrash out a compromise between inventors and producers, and at last to evade old patents. In other words, QWERTY came about through a combination of factors. What are these factors? There was direct input from telegraph operators, as well as compromises made between inventors and producers. Practical changes made by the manufacturers who actually had to mass produce the product. In other words, the keyboard layout on Scholl's original prototype, for example, was altered by the mechanics at Remington, the famous company. And then there were old patents to contend with. So in 1886, a new company called Wyckoff, Siemens, and Benedict, WS&B, released the Remington Standard Typewriter No. 2. To avoid existing keyboard layout patterns, the company slightly altered the design, placing the M next to N and swapping around C and X. This became the QWERTY format keyboard we all use today. That brings us to the end of this episode. Very interesting, right? It's something we don't think about. Why isn't the keyboard alphabetical? The second line is ASDFG. The third line is ZXCVB. It's interesting to be inquisitive and ask questions about why things are the way they are. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like, and as always, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.